Louisville was finally able to pull off a win. Guys, we're going to talk about how men's hoops got things done as well as women's games that are happening tonight. Things are going well, but how could they be better for the Cardinals? Let's talk about it on today's show.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace, joined by Kenton Gibbs here of Locked On Wolfpack. Each and every day, we try and make it a special one for you so you can download, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube where you can see our faces, or you can follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. We are absolutely a good time here. So I strongly encourage you to do that as we're getting through a great holiday season. Kenton, how are we feeling?
Oh, I feel great. I'm feeling good. We finally saw Louisville get a win.
Yes.
We finally saw it. We needed to see it, and it finally happened. So, we're excited about Louisville and finally getting their first win because, again, it's good for the conference when we have good teams. Come on now, say it with me, everybody. It's good for the conference when we have
good teams. Speaking of which, Western Kentucky's luck ran out, as we had mentioned on yesterday's show. The Kim Pom rankings had them being very lucky, but it was all Cardinals all the time, thanks to Ellis's 30 points for the game. And it just felt as if the energy had shifted for Louisville. And I mean that in the sense of, like, at the end of the day, you're Louisville, right? You ought to be a Western Kentucky. You got to have, like we love to say on this show, some pride about you. Make sure that you are doing the damn thing and beating the teams that you're supposed to beat. It was a shaky start, but how about them for winning at home and turning the ship and figuring out that at the end of the day, you are a Power 5, basketball powerhouse for a reason.
Absolutely. And that needs to happen. At the end of the day, I tell people all the time, one of the most important things in how coaches draw up plays and all that is you need to have a go-to play or two that's committed to memory, that when your best guys are having a tough time at it, you can just get a basket, right? Mm-hmm. And why is that? Because sometimes you just need to see it go through the hoop once, and then all of a sudden you can get rolling and figure it out. Same thing for this Louisville team in terms of losing. Sometimes you just need that one win. Doesn't matter who it's over, doesn't matter how it comes. And this Louisville team was 0-9. They needed that one win, and hopefully they can turn this and parlay this into at least a season that, while bad, is not like, oh boy, this is the worst season in Louisville history type territory.
Well, speaking of worst seasons, this is the worst that any team has ever started out in ACC history. 9 losses is in a row, really, is the worst any ACC program has. And this is a top 15 all-time winningest program in college basketball. So the head scratching is very clear because no one understands how they've started so bad. But you listen to coach, you listen to people saying, listen, hopefully this is a stepping stone that they greatly needed because they put in a lot of work. But we have to build on the game and continue the momentum and get over the Schneid. Okay. They did Schneid. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm pretty. They deserve it. They worked really hard, harder than I can tell you. They're good kids. It's all about them, which at the end of the day, we've both been college athletes. Nobody goes into competing, training, doing all the things to lose, and to lose in that fashion and to lose so consistently. So it's not like they don't have people who want to win and do better, but the skid was crazy. Hopefully we can turn it around.
The skid was crazy, but also, like we always say, nobody wants to win better than the players. Nobody wants to win more. I promise you, go Cards 5, 6, 7 on the message board. You do not want to see the Louisville Cardinals win as bad as any player that puts on that jersey 9 times out of 10. Now, are there exceptions? Of course. Are there guys who sometimes are like, well, my numbers are more important than winning, and winning is cool and all, but if that's a byproduct of me getting to where I got to go, great. Yes, that exists. But by and large, all of these players are competitive. Again, if you end up playing not just college ball, ACC basketball, 9 times out of 10, you're 1% of 1%, or not even 9 times out of 10. Just statistically, you're 1% of 1% of 1%. That's the reality. So I promise you, however bad you think, oh, well, I wanted more, and these players just don't. They do. And it's embarrassing for them to go through these types of losses and styles, but hopefully they're off it now.
Yeah, Louisville has 4 games left in December. They'll face off against FAMU next week, followed by Lipscomb. Then they start back with their conference play playing NC State, but then a big one, a rivalry game out the gate starting on December 31st is they're playing Kentucky. So out of the 4, I hope you can give me 2 more. I think NC State game will be competitive, but that Kentucky one might be crazy.
FAMU and Lipscomb should be easy wins. I don't know why you
don't say should be. No, we just talked about a 9-game lose streak. Don't say that.
That's fair. They should be wins that this team can come up with. With that being said, that NC State game is another game that if you catch them on a bad day, that team can lose to almost anybody. Now, with that being said, that Kentucky game, why would y'all want to go into the new year with that one? Why would that be the game you scheduled for the New Year?
But they didn't know that they were going to be so bad.
Yeah, okay. Even if you didn't know, Coach Cal and company is who you want on New Year's Eve. Child, I'll tell you what. Hopefully,
you ain't trying to ring in the new year on such a bad note, but somebody got to do it.
Hopefully, the houses are spotless clean and the black eyed peas are boiling on the stove because there needs to be something. There needs to be something. Make sure the first man in the house got some money in his pocket or something because they're gonna need something to shake off what may happen to them on the 31st.
1,000%. And to top it off, they started out January with a full slate. All 7 games are ACC opponents. So, they've got some, just give me 2 out of the 4 in December and then maybe be competitive against NC State. And we'll just feel like the ship is turning. Then maybe they'll be the lucky team out of the KenPom when it's all said and done. We do want to talk about another team that had a great game last night from the men's side of things, Wake Forest. Finally pulling one off after going ahead and being up so many points to kind of butchering that lead. App State was able to come back, but not enough in the 1.4 seconds left where the Demon Deacons pulled off the 67-66 victory.
Listen, the Demon Deacons stole one. They stole one. They got away with one.
They got lucky? Your favorite?
People talk about how the Grinch stole Christmas. Well, listen, Wake Forest stole this basketball game. I'll tell you what, they did their best to lose that lead and lose this game. But and losing one of your best players, your leading scorer in that game is one where you're just like, yep, it's not our night, and that's all right. But they found a way. They found a way at the end to do just enough to hold on. So
yeah, 100%. I think Andrew Carr's game-winning shot was certainly something to hold your head about. But Tyree Appleby, again, one of their leading performers, did go down. We don't know the extent of the injury, but hopefully he makes a full recovery and is able to return towards the end of the season. But all in all, I think it was a great opportunity for Wake to close out a good one after blowing a lead. However, the minus 12.5, I don't know why you would ever put that against App State, especially looking at a team like Wake Forest. I think for them, they're going to have to figure out how to maintain big leads and keep it rolling and not trying to come down to nail biters because they'll face off against Rutgers next week. And then they go right into conference play to end their year by facing off against Duke and Virginia Tech, 2 top 25 teams. Now, to me, if you want to put yourself in a position to say and fight for I need to be in the NCAA tournament, though, out of those 2 games, you got to find one.
Yeah, for sure. And as much as people don't like to say this, as much as folks don't like to talk about it, there is a very serious reality about certain teams. If you don't have a certain type of cachet or brand name, your resume has to more than speak for itself.
You don't think Wake Forest has the cachet?
No, they don't. They don't. They don't. It's unfortunate because they should have been. I think they should have been there last year. I think they should have. I think the last year's team.
You don't think Wake Forest's name has Chris Paul, Tim Duncan, Randolph Childress? No. Okay. Hey, listen. I'm just asking.
Interesting. When did Chris Paul graduate?
Like 2005, maybe.
When did Randolph Childress graduate?
Probably 1995, maybe.
I'm good friends with his son, Brandon. Me and Brandon, thick as thieves. Shout out to the good troops out there. With that being said, his son graduated with me. You know what I mean? Like, that's
telling. Okay.
Tim Duncan, what was he? Also in the 90s?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Okay. But I'm just saying the cachet of being like, you have historic, names a part of your program.
Again, it's I'm gonna tell you, it's a combination of things. Yes, the historic names are part of it, and yes, historically being winning is another part of it. And then the other part of it is who's your superstar, who's the draw, who's the big name, right? When Oklahoma made the tournament, with Trae Young on the team. And everybody looked up and said, that team? How did they get it? It was very clear. They had a huge name. They had a name that you kind of can't deny, that it was going to go on to play in the NBA for many years and do exciting things. And he was shooting 30-foot jumpers and having all these crazy assists. They said he's going to get in. And he did. That's how it works. And at the end of the day, again, if you as a team don't have that superstar, or you don't have the name of a, say, North Carolina or a Duke, or of a, say, Kentucky, of a, say, Michigan or whatever the case may be, if you don't have that type of name behind you, your resume has to leave no doubt.
Yeah, I agree.
We've seen it not just with Wake Forest. We saw it a few years back with NC State as well, where it was like, that team should have probably made the tournament, but they just did not for whatever reason. So if you don't have the big name, leave no doubt, or else you're going to get left out.
Okay, you coming with all the phrases today, sir. I like it. I'm digging it. All right, guys, we are hanging out with some of our friends, let's just say, and putting a few drinks back. A few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. No, you live nearby. You can make it home. It's truly no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that can happen? Your insurance goes up. You lose your license. You lose your job. You total your car. You could possibly kill someone. Everyone knows about the risk of drunk driving. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. Ubers, Lyfts, all the things that are readily available for us these days. Even having a designated driver at your events. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. We're talking with Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack each and every day. You can find us here on this Great on Locked On ACC show. And at times we'll have, a couple guests every now and again. But if you want to follow us on YouTube, subscribe to that channel. It's always appreciated. Now, we mentioned the games that are happening for the men's side of things, but let's tap into some of these women games that are going to be exciting for tonight as we roll through Thursday matchups. 3 teams that we want to mention here. Wake Forest will take on Longwood. Going to be an easy win for Wake Forest. But as we were talking about the men's side and having some cachet, I think Wake Forest, quiet as it's kept, is a very good ACC team. I think all of them are, respectfully. But I think Wake Forest is another team that flies under that radar, but certainly can shake some tables when it comes to not only the conference, but nationally. I cannot hear you.
I'm sorry. I was messed around and muted. Okay. I 100% agree with you there that this Wake Forest team, they could, at the end of the day, when you look at a conference like the ACC, with a team like Louisville struggling in the way that they have, somebody kind of has to come up and fill in that role of one of the teams that are naturally, you're going to get some wins that you probably shouldn't, or whatever the case may be. You're going to get a win over one of these teams that are really good and in the top 15. And Wake Forest could be that team this year. Wake Forest could be that team the same way that we saw Miami come on late last year and all of a sudden make it to the conference championship and all that. You could see that type of situation happening with this Wake Forest women's basketball team. However, I will say this. These games should be tune-ups. They should be for all these teams tomorrow. They should be tune-ups. We have seen that shoulda, coulda, woulda sometimes end up with a shoulda, coulda, lost. And so we'll see.
100%. Speaking of shoulda, coulda, wouldas, Presbyterian will take on a 10-1 Florida State team that is looking good. Minus 39.5 right now, which, crazier things can happen. But women's college hoops, sometimes there are very grave differences in scores. But I'm liking this Florida State team, right? I think most of my girls' name, Tanisha. Is it Tanisha or Tania? She got player of the week. I can't recall her name right here in this moment. But Florida State is looking like one of the better teams in our conference. It's still early. Very much have times to shake things up. But they are also another fly under the radar program right now for me.
I think that at the end of the day, when you look at Florida and who they are, or Florida State rather, and who they are, I know the Florida State fans are going to kill me for that one. But anyway, Tania Latson getting Latson getting ACC Player of the Week and Rookie of the Week is showing that she's coming into her own. She is
Yeah.
flourishing. She is running away with the ACC Rookie of the Year race at the moment. And with that being said, I think that she can, again, this Florida State team is another one that could end up in that conversation late of how good are they? Are they a tournament team and all that good stuff? It's very possible.
Yes, 100% agree. Final team that is having a Thursday night matchup, Davidson will face off against a 9-1 NC State team that, of course, I don't know, do we have a status update on Diamond Johnson? How is she feeling? Is she good to go? Should be ready to play tonight, or we're going to take another day?
I personally think they should hold her out just in case, regardless.
Yep.
I don't think that you risk getting her hurt for a Davidson team here when you're heading into conference play where you're going to need her to show up big time in some of these games going forward, especially in Reynolds. That place is going to be loud and ruckus as always. And you have a team that is so balanced that we've seen multiple different leading scorers on the year. We've seen multiple different leading rebounders. We've seen this team win in different ways. We've seen this team go up and down the court and score like crazy on Iowa. We've seen this team hold other teams to scores of like 50 or 60 in terms of what they did against Georgia. This is a team that can win it a bunch of different ways. And honestly, if you don't need Diamond, I would say rest her, let her get as healthy as possible before you bring her back.
And finally, on the Friday night, we won't talk about it on tomorrow's show because we'll be previewing the Louisville-Cincinnati bowl game. But I want to remind you that South Carolina Upstate will be facing off against number 7 North Carolina. And, I think North Carolina is one of these teams that they made a couple statements last season, but they're really trying to hammer home the point that they are a program. Why are you making that face?
I'm sorry. I got a text from work about something that was kind of interesting. Proceed.
I think that North Carolina is a team that could be really dangerous come tournament time. I think they proved that last year in their, slight run, but their consistency. Can you maintain this good energy and vibe throughout the rest of, the prime season that you prep for conference play?
I think that the biggest thing that a lot of people don't realize is everybody thinks that you turn into a winner overnight. Yeah. That you turn into the program that's a what is the word I'm looking for? A perennial powerhouse overnight. That's not how it works. You go through the stages of, okay, we get an upset here and there, which I think North Carolina had been for the past 2 years. And then you get to the stage where you're like, okay, we win consistently, but also everybody's waiting on that letdown from us, which is where they kind of are now. And then you get to the other stage where it's like, hey, we're here. We're expected to be something serious in everything that we do. And they're just not there yet, but they're a good team though.
Yes, 100% agree. Now, Kenton, I know this might surprise you, but the best team right now from the women's side of things in ACC women's basketball is, let me guess, do you think you know?
I'm sorry, what now?
The best team in the ACC for women's basketball.
It should be Virginia Tech, right? They're the highest ranked?
Yeah, Virginia.
I'm sorry, what?
It's Virginia.
I beg your pardon?
The team that couldn't find a win last year is the best in the ACC right now. Because no one else has really started conference play. It was a little funny.
I was just about to say, do they just have 2 conference wins and nobody else does it?
Yes, that's in fact the case. But hey, that's what makes this all exciting, right? Because you can make your case for every single team here, except for about a couple in women's college basketball. So I'm excited to see how that pans out. But yes, I know it's crazy for you. You get rid of Tina Thompson and things just start going your way.
Lord Jesus, don't heat up Tina Thompson like that. Don't leave her alone. Leave that woman alone.
No doubt about it. We'll talk a little bit about the men's rankings here and just predictions as we head into the weekend. But first, I want to remind you guys that BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball and World Cup, they've got it all covered at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those as well. BetOnline is your fastest and easiest way to get your sports betting information. You can head to the website today or use your mobile devices to learn more. BetOnline is simply where the game starts. So we're wrapping things up from a basketball standpoint, talking to Kenton Gibbs here of Locked On Wolfpack. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of good things happening for not only men's and women's basketball, but from a men's standpoint, the Saturday games to me are going to be the most critical. And as we look to, conference play and people trying to establish themselves and all the fun things, as it stands right now, Miami is the best team in the ACC.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Miami legitimately is the best team.
Statistically, yes.
No. Not
No?
just statistically.
On
They
paper,
are,
from what you see with your eyes?
from what I've seen with these two eyes of mine, they are the best team in the ACC.
Better than Virginia?
I'm going to tell you why I've got them with a slight edge over Virginia. And I know some
Okay.
people going to kill me for this. Virginia still has those times where their offense goes completely anemic. They still have those moments where it's like they are struggling for dear life to buy a bucket. And the reality is, as good as Kihei Clark is, as good as Gardner is at times, this is not a team that I'm looking at and I say to myself, they have a guy that they can roll the ball out to and say, hey, go get me a bucket that can do so the way that Miami does in Isaiah Wong. They just don't. They don't have that. The end of the story for me is one team has Isaiah Wong, the other does not. That's the full rundown.
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually surprised that he did not go to the league last season, or go G League route or whatever, what have you, with such a good run that Miami had. But I definitely think this is going to be his year to really stamp on how he's been as a collegiate player, and hopefully as he is on the next level. But not only are Virginia and Miami good teams, but also Virginia Tech clearly, and Duke. But I say Duke is just kindly flying under this radar, and I just can't tell if it's like, again, they have good enough players, but we're not going to be super critical, or is because the team down the street was having such a bad fall that nobody really paid attention to them.
I think Duke is just doing what they're supposed to do, right? They're just chopping the wood, beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. And at the end of the day, when you look at Duke basketball this year, again, I believe they're 1-2 against top 25 teams this year. So, I mean, I can understand why teams are, or why folks are like, what is this Duke team really? How good are they really? But at the end of the day, if you're beating teams that you're supposed to beat, and who you're supposed to beat is almost everybody except 10 teams, basically, I think it's safe to say you're a pretty good team.
Way too early predictions, mid-December assessment. Who is a team that you're like, all right, everyone needs to pay attention? You don't necessarily say they're outright the best right now, but don't sleep on said program. Who is that for you?
I mean, I hate to do this with such a highly ranked team, but I know Virginia fans would kill me if I didn't say, after saying Miami is the best team to me, I would not be surprised if Virginia comes back to reclaim that crown from this standpoint. Yes, Miami does have Isaiah Wong, but even with him, there are still some moments with them where you look at them defensively and you have some questions about them. And also, I mean, at the end of the day, Isaiah Wong ain't gonna play every minute of every game. Like that's just the reality there. So I wouldn't be too surprised if Virginia and that backline defense ends up making things real hard on a lot of teams this year.
Quiet is kept. I think Syracuse, once they figure it out with Jesse Edwards and Judah Mintz, they might be a problem. If they all figure out how to gel towards tournament time, I think they're going to surprise some people and catch some people sleeping at the wheel.
Saying if Syracuse gels during tournament time is like saying if it's going to snow at the North Pole. At some point in time, if you get them to tournament time and they close, they're going to figure something out. They just going to, all of a sudden you look up and you're like, wait a minute. Have they just shot 40% from three in their last 7 games? Wait a minute.
That's fact.
What just happened here?
Syracuse is definitely my sleeper team, though.
Yeah, Syracuse is a sleeper team every year. You know what I mean? They got a sleepy old coach. They're a sleeper team. They just wake up out the blue. All of a sudden, every time you get
just
close,
gels. Yeah,
they hang around the bubble every year, and then when tournament time comes, all of a sudden, they player starts averaging 25 a game, and all of a sudden, that 2-3 defense that looked real bad early in the season, they rebounded out of it. They getting deflection steals, all that, making it tough on teams. So we'll see.
Do they treat Syracuse? So I'm saying, does Boeheim treat Syracuse like an NBA team? Like, oh, it doesn't matter. Just like let us get to the tournament. Let's get to the playoffs.
I mean, I'm not.
I'm not saying you're wrong here.
You're not wrong. You're not exactly. I've never seen at least recently, I've never seen this Syracuse team, come out with their hair on absolute fire. And I could be because 17 years of football ain't great for the memory. But with that being said, I don't ever remember Syracuse coming out just blazing, setting the world on fire in the first couple weeks or the first month or so of the season. They always just, again, build up over time, and slowly but surely they just start getting better and better and better.
1,000%. Guys, come back tomorrow as we are going to preview again the Louisville-Cincinnati bowl game, all the storylines, all the piping hot tea, all the things that we talk about with Satterfield and how he may or may not make this one a very interesting case. I love I can't wait for the broadcast team. I'm very interested to see how they're going to address all of these, underlying things that the elephant is right there in the room, but we'll shake hands with the people afterwards, all the fun stuff that we're like looking forward to seeing when it's all said and done. But make sure you follow Candace, Cooper, Kenton, Gibbs on our respective Twitter handles. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as all of our friends at Locked On Podcast Network. For Candace, Cooper, and Kenton Gibbs. Until next time.